Rugby pod.
All right, Biggs. How we doing?
All right, Rob. We're getting. This is becoming a bit of a thing now, isn't it? Me and you.
It is, mate. Well, Lions Fever, it's on us. And we've got a very special Lions guest today, haven't we?
We have indeed. We've got somebody who's got 125 Island caps, 8 Lion Test caps, Grand Slam winner, 200 appearances for Munster. It is the great Conor Murray. Conor, how are you? You don't look too bad for a guy who made his debut in 2010. I don't know if do you remember of my last Six Nations, 2023? We were on the pitch in Cardiff and we both said to each other we were basically hanging on. And
yeah,
I'm hanging on by an absolute thread, and I'm not quite sure how you are now. How is the body and how is the form?
The body's good, yeah. I remember that. I remember that clearly. Yeah, we were reaching the end, weren't we? We were reaching the end, and managed to hang on for one more. It's good, yeah. I think you know this feeling. You gotta step away when it's. Faz always said it before it gets kind of to be a drag coming in on a Monday, doesn't it? You gotta, especially international. Like there's, it's a lot more expected of you, a lot more needed of you. So yeah, got one more out of myself, and I'm looking forward to a break for a little while at the end of the season, and then you see how we go. Body's fine, but body's great, but you get drained a little bit, don't you? So yeah, we don't know where we're going next year. Genuinely, we haven't decided yet. So we want to do something nice lifestyle wise and play at a decent level. So give it one more year abroad and get some sun on the bones and relax.
Leicester's quite good in the summer, I've heard as well. I'd be surprised if you end up in the East Midlands somewhere, mate. I'll be honest.
My God. Yeah. I think you know what I'm after. I think after a bit. Dan Biggar lifestyle.
You obviously announced your retirement kind of during this year's Six Nations, along with Pete, along with Cian Healy as well. Was there a moment? Because I found when I announced my retirement, it's hard to put your finger on exactly a defining moment, but someone sort of said to me, "When you know, you'll know," and I knew that was the time, type of thing. Was there anything particular which made you think of it, or was it just the when you know, you know?
This episode is presented by Sky Sports on Now.
So the British and Irish Lions are on tour, James.
They certainly are, Andrew. And if the millions of Rugby Pod listeners want to watch the action, then Sky Sports is the only place to do it. All 3 test matches and every single minute of the 6 warm-up games, live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, they can add or remove memberships whenever they like.
Oh, lovely stuff.
18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
Yeah, you do. Like, isn't it very hard to describe to people when you know? And I remember on a Monday or Tuesday, I told Faz and I told a few of my the mates in the team knew that I was gonna. It would be my last Six Nations, and Paul O'Connell, which you've had a few experiences with, came up to me and he was like, "Kid, I heard you're retiring, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah. I think it's the right thing to do." And he was like, "What the fuck? What are you doing? Like you're fit and you're blah blah blah." And I was like, "Paulie, this decision was made a long time ago. I don't like. It's just right. Do you know what I mean? Like you might be fit and you're like healthy, thank God. You know, you're not hanging on that way. But the way the Irish setup had gone, Jamison came in and incredible player, and I had my time in the jersey. I got along enough in it, so I was really happy to kind of play that role for a couple of years or however long it was, and then obviously with Craig Casey coming in, you just feel it. You kind of feel it that they're turning the page a little bit in terms of the next generation, and you're kind of like in your head, you're like, "Fuck, I can keep going. I can play at this level," and you can. But obviously, Craig, after November, I think this year or last year, Craig got in for the Australia game, and it was kind of he had gotten the games before, but it was the first time we played a top tier nation, and you were left out of the 23, and I was like, it just like you accept it, but you're kind of like, maybe it's, I don't want to be selfishly or unselfishly, I don't want to be in this squad and be the third choice and be, as people say, holding pads for the next while. So, unfortunately, Craig got a bang on his knee with Munster in the European Cup, and then that kind of, because I was talking at home to my wife Joanna, and I was like, this might even be the time now. Like, you've done November, and you've been really lucky, but maybe call it now. And then situation changes. I hadn't said anything to anyone, but Craig got injured, and then that kind of meant that you'd be involved in the 23s for the Six Nations. So I was very lucky that way, and got to kind of end it on your terms, which was really nice. Because yourself, like being in a tracksuit. Now, thankfully, I haven't done it much, but being in a tracksuit, watching the game while the lads are playing, and then going into the dressing room afterwards, especially after a win, you kind of feel like a spare brick a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. But it's funny though, Conor. I find, like, when you are the guy in the match kit and you've played, you know that the guys in the tracksuits have done as much, if not more, for the group to prepare the group, etc., etc. But when you're in that tracksuit, you don't feel that at all, do you? You can't. It's so roles reversed, isn't it?
Yeah, like you asked about, like, when you know the feeling of when to end it, like, and talking to. And I've done it a few times in the tracksuit, but over my career, I've been very lucky. I've always been in the match kit, and that's great. But speaking to those lads and feeling it a couple of times, it's very hard to describe to people outside of the group. Like, you're playing for your country, and it means everything. And the fans and your family are supporting you. And then there's this little middle gap or group of lads who aren't playing, and they feel really disconnected. And it's like, they have prepared the team, they've trained all week, they've traveled with the group, but it's a really tough place to be for those lads, to kind of, you don't feel like, you can say you feel part of the group, but you're not. You haven't been on the pitch, you haven't played for your country that day. So it's an important part, but it's not a nice place to be. So yeah, just again, I'd say I've been very lucky. So it was the right time, and I'm very, very content with it. And myself and yourself have quite a few caps, and you've got to experience a good few times. So there's no feeling of, you'll miss the lads, but geez, I've had the time of my life in the Irish jersey, and very grateful for it. A lot of people say, geez, will you struggle with it? Now, you'll miss them, but like, we've had the time of our lives. I mean, we've been there long enough, and people probably calling for your head for long enough as well. So you've outlasted a good few of them.
Well, there's certainly been people calling for my head. I'm not so sure so many would have been calling for yours. But
definitely.
You are right. I think when you've fulfilled a lot in the jersey and you've given a fair bit and got a bit back, it's easier to step away, isn't it? Just start by touching on your sort of Lions experience and career. You're one of the few that have been part of a winning tour, drawn series, and losing series. So I think it's yourself, Alan Wynne, Faz, Toby, and Harfers.
Yeah.
Can't think unless you
get the whole collection.
Yeah. So I suppose on that, how did they all differ, and what was sort of different in that 12-year period, and sort of the good, the bad, and all the rest amongst it?
Yeah, they were all completely different. Australia in 2013 was my first, obviously, and what a tour! It was like Australia as a country to tour. That's what I'm jealous of, the lads going down there now. It's the best country to tour in my opinion. And I was 24 at the time. Bag of nerves going on that tour. Just the first camp was in Carton House in Ireland, and you're young, and there's all these legends there, Dricko, Mike Phillips, who I looked up to, loads of lads there, and I was like, am I made for, like, am I actually going here? And then I walked into my room in Carton House, and you're like, who, like, when you're a young fella, you're like, who am I room with? Like, I hope I can talk to this fella, blah blah blah. And I walked in, and the Lions bags were on the floor, and they were all the initials or the names were on it. It was like M. Phillips, and I was like, fuck. I think, like, I looked up to Mike for so long, and I remember being so nervous, like, waiting for him to get back to the room and be like, well, how are you? And then he turned out, like, he's a legend, and got on so well with him. And then, you just need the first training session or the first social that we had out in Dublin a couple of nights later. And time of my life on that tour. It was just all new, all, you know, we all grew up watching the documentaries, and to be in one, and even just putting on like a T-shirt with the Lions badge, and it was a buzz, a complete buzz, and ended up, I went with no expectations of the test team. It was Lenny who was flying high at the time, and obviously Mike was world class, as he says himself.
I was just about to say, I got no doubt that room would have been very, very much Mike telling you how good he was over the last however many years. Yeah,
showing me clips of his tries and stuff. But yeah, and I went on tour, had an absolute blast, played a bit, and then somehow found my way into the test team for the last 2 tests, and we won it. So kind of dreamland in terms of where I started on that tour, and then finishing up in the test squad.
We did just a quick one on that, Conor. We had I think it was 2013 autumn, so the autumn after that Australia tour, and we had a dinner at the Vale of Glamorgan where we stay with Wales. And Gats was up on stage, and they asked him sort of who was, you know, the surprise package for you for Gats on tour. And he sort of said, and Mike was in the room, and he said, he thought Conor Murray was the most sort of improved and the most the person who developed his game the most on tour, and ended up being a real important part. And everyone just looked at Philsy, who was absolutely gutted with that comment. So,
brilliant. It was great. And we had some crack with Mike on that. What did he call? He called me a poor man's Mike Phillips on that tour at the start. On that, I think it was the first social. We went to Keogh's bar in Dublin. On the bus on the way in, Philsy, Paulie, the usuals at the back of the bus just holding the court, and they were like jumping down at their own fans, and they're like, "You're only here because your father is the coach. Like, who are you? You're not even that good." And pointing out a few players, and like, "What's your name again? I don't even know who you are." Like, so they, like the initiation was gas, and then got close to Mike on tour and learned loads off him. And then at the end, we had a few days, because we won the series. It was great. And we were a couple of days in Australia, and me and Mike ended up in a bar on our own for like 2 hours, just drinking together, and it was unreal. And I remember just joking, and I was like, "Well, I have it from here now. I'll take it on from here. You've done your work." I was calling my dad at the time. But what a legend. Just to experience, like, you know, he grew up, he was obviously started quite a while before me, and then to share a tour with someone like that, someone you hold up so high, and still do, but just to become a teammate was class. So 2013 was amazing. 17 was intense.
It was intense, wasn't it?
I remember rooming together at the time when we were first got to Auckland, I think. I know we switched roomies, but I remember room with you at the time, and I had just come off a neck injury in the Six Nations against you. George North ran over me and buckled my neck, so I was touch and go for that tour. But I was only telling the lads the other day when the announcement was on, they were asking me, like, how did you ever find out, you know, because you watched it on TV. And because of my neck, and I was playing well that year, so I thought I had a decent chance, but my neck was at me. So Gats actually rang me a good few times throughout that lead up to the announcement. So I was kind of I knew I was going if I was fit, which was, you know, you find out different ways. The other two I didn't know, which was weird as well. But
you must have been important if Gats managed to pick up the phone to you, Conor, huh?
That was probably the one sweet spot in my career where I felt I had a decent chance. But you know, he rang me the first time, and I was like, "This isn't him. Like, this is the lads like trying to take the piss here." You know, because you don't want to. They're weird phone calls to get, and you don't know how to kind of respond to them. But that tour was mad because
Did you feel, Conor, that in 2017 you were, you know, you just said that was kind of one of the sweet spots, but that was sort of something for me that when I was rooming with you, I sort of thought, well, you know, this guy is going to be, you know, starting in that first test. You know what I mean? And you were kind of one of those go-to guys, and that at the minute, I don't think there's that many people who are guaranteed to be started in that first test team. But I think in 2017, you could probably work out who the real key important people were. Was that something that you felt in 2017 and on tour?
Yeah, like you're not going to be playing. Like, you can say it now. Yeah, I did. I felt good. I felt great at the time. We had beaten the All Blacks in Chicago in the November previous, and you can say it now. Like, that was definitely one of the best games I ever played. So I just felt in a good sweet spot, I suppose. You know, like, you know, at times in your career you feel really good, and I did. And that Six Nations, I had played well enough, but then got injured early, missed the last 2 games. But I had been talking to Gats prior to that, so I did feel. I felt good about my game. I thought I was playing really well, but at the same time, Webby was ripping it up. I think, because you'd be looking at out halves and seeing how they're going, obviously, and you say you're not, but everyone does. And I remember Webby he scored like 19 tries or something mental that year, and I was like, and he's Welsh, and Gats is there, and I was like, I'm doing as well as I can, but this guy's on fire. So there was never like, oh, guarantee. I knew you'd be in and around the test squad, but I was like, Webby's on one here as well. So I was delighted to start that first test, and then we got to the second test, and it was really wet in Wellington, and it was like a bit of a leveler, and we managed to turn him over. Sonny Bill got sent off, and I remember watching that game back, and I was like, I didn't have a great first 50 minutes. Genuinely didn't play that well. And then towards the end of the game, I snuck over for a try, and we had a few good moments towards the end of the game, and we ended up winning. So then I was like, that can kind of, when you win, that kind of paves over the cracks. And I was like, I'm definitely starting the last test now. So I was delighted with that. So yeah, it was a weird tour, and it was strange the way we drew. I think there should always be a playoff or like a shootout or something, because it was we were just standing there with the All Blacks at the end, and we kind of, all that effort, the 8 weeks, 10 weeks of work, and you're kind of like, we just called it a draw, lads, and see you later.
Nobody really knew what to do on the pitch, did we? Obviously, like you said, because I was one of the ones who was in the suits at that point, and it's kind of like, even you guys who were on the field in the match kit, everyone was just a bit lost, and it just felt a bit. Yeah. It just felt like awkward. You said, after all that work and effort and traveling. Do you remember? I think we only had our first day off properly after like 5 weeks on tour because of the traveling and days off and the 2 teams, etc.
Schedule, yeah.
So it felt like for all that to not have a winner, you'd almost rather have lost it in a sense, wouldn't you? At least there would have been a winner at the end of it. Do you know what I mean?
You'd know how to feel, wouldn't you? Because like if you win, you know how to feel, and you lose, and then the draw was just, no one really spoke about the permutations if it was a draw or what would happen. So we were just standing on the pitch kind of going, nearly, is it extra time or what's the crack? And then Sam and Kieran Reid kind of lifted the cup, and we were just like, all right, well, we were like, at least we didn't lose, but it just felt weird, didn't it? Something that big, so something like a big tour. A Lions story is always big, but like especially down in New Zealand, like it needs to be a winner. But I remember like half the thing is the crack you have, and then we went out to that island and Waiheke Island, and the mud brick winery or something like that, and we had some crack. It was unbelievable a couple of days, so that was amazing. But like New Zealand is different, isn't it? That like Australia, the weather, I know it's not their summer, but the weather is a bit better. New Zealand is their winter, and it was at times it was like you said, the schedule as well. The schedule was so intense. It was really, really intense.
Conor, you said about like the crack. It was the 2070. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like we were all there together, wasn't it? It wasn't the test team and the rest. It really did feel like a one squad, didn't it? And then, the social element you said about Australia being a brilliant place to tour, and the New Zealand element. I suppose like when you look forward, then again 4 years down the line to that COVID tour, it was. The way I describe it when people ask me, it was like playing for the Lions, but it wasn't like you were on a Lions tour. Would that be quite fair to sum it up in that way?
Yeah, 100%. You're right, because it was obviously COVID, and I remember watching the 2009 tour, and it looked incredible. Just the South African touring in South Africa's class as well, and they're rugby mad, and it did feel like playing for the Lions. It really did. But it was weird because we played. It was Japan in Murrayfield, wasn't it, before we left? And, they allowed half the stadium to fill up with the COVID rules kind of relaxing a bit. And you got a sense there really that it was a Lions tour. And then we just flew to South Africa on our own. No fans, nothing. And we were jumping around hotels, and lads were getting COVID and having to isolate and blah, blah, blah. It was just a shame that it fell around that time. And the teams are kind of lads falling out of teams and having to and then there probably was the separation of the test team and the midweek team does happen naturally. It does, but you're right. At 17, it felt because you had lads like Haskell, Bestie, who were on that team, and they were big characters in the whole squad. So it just felt really connected. Yeah, the 21 tour was strange, but
what did Sinks? I remember. I think Sinks referred to the 21 tour as the driest tour since '81 or something like that. He said.
I'd agree with him. And he tried his best not to make it that dry that day we had out. In that another winery in South Africa, but there was just it was just rigid, wasn't it? It was just a bit. Yeah. It was tough. It's not like, and tough. I feel. Luckily, we got to experience it on a proper level in New Zealand in 17, but you'd feel for lads if that was their only tour, because that's not. Yeah. It was still amazing. It was still, you still played for the Lions, and no one could take that from him. But it was just if you feel for lads who it was their only tour, because it's Lions is something special, and you work so hard to get there. So yeah, the lads this summer now will really experience it properly.
Speaking, I want to just touch on maybe a couple of Lions sort of stories before we maybe move on to some Island bits. One of the sort of the biggest or the most popular stories and things from 2013 was Zeebs phoning Rob Penny and asking to be captain. How did that sort of give maybe the listeners a bit of an insight how that came about, and sort of if there was any sort of, was Rob playing up to it, or did he was he very much
no. Caught off guard, that pops up on my phone a lot. That story, so Zeebs was called out late.
Zeebs is going to live off that for the next 25, 50 years, isn't it?
That's where I see it, because anytime it's posted, he reposts it, like he loves it. So he came on tour late. And I remember I said about 2013 at the start, being really nervous coming on tour, going to Carlton House for the first time. Zeebs is like the most outgoing, loud fella ever. And I remember he flew out from Ireland. We're in the States playing, and he flew over, and we were in Sydney on Bondi Beach out for coffee. I remember Zeebs ringing me, like, bro, I've arrived. Like, will you come up to the room and like bring me down to meet the lads? Like, I don't want to come down into a big group. And I was like, this isn't a Zeebo, I know. And then 5 minutes later, he'd met everyone, and he was just having crack and being himself. And then I was rooming with him. He was like, he didn't even have boots at the time. He left his boots in the States and arrived on, stole my boots for his first game against the Waratahs. Jeeves is just relaxed, isn't he? He's just like, that's when he played his best. And we arrive onto the Melbourne Rebels game midweek. And there's a few of us, like, you know how it is. There's the midweek team, but there's 4, 5, 6 lads in there that do have a chance of playing in the test team at the weekend. And I remember going to that game like proper, like, all right, fucking try have a really good game here, and then we'll see how the cards fall. And like 38, 39 minutes, I hit a ruck, or I carried the ball. I was down at the bottom of the ruck. One of the forwards played 9 for a phase, and then I got up and just. I got up and I was kind of looking around, and I just heard Zeebs like, time off, like, kick it off. So like, naturally, you just kick it backwards, or you kick it straight out, or you don't try and kick it forward. So I'm pretty sure I kicked it backwards and started running off the pitch for half time. And I looked, the ref just like blew to the line out, and I was like, what? Look back, and Zeebs was breaking his whole, laughing at me. And I was like, this is not the time to do this. Like, this is like, the coaches are looking at me now going like, does this fella have a clue what he's doing? He just wasn't, not to say he wasn't taking it seriously. Zeebs is able to do both. He can be messing on the pitch. I'm sure playing against him, like the crack he has with you. Got to the court session, rolled the dice, had to ring Rob Penny, and I did the way he thought on his feet there. He was like, yeah, Doug Howlett's after retiring. I want to keep the captaincy in the wing. Any chance for me? And had to ring Rob. It was brilliant. It's such a funny, like, he rang and went to voicemail, and then as he's leaving a voicemail, Rob rings back, and Zeebs loves that stuff. Like, he thrives in that environment. So yeah, like I said, he'll live off that for a long time. Like, he'll keep reposting till the day he goes.
The social committee would have been on fire in Munster if he was captain that year.
Oh, stop. Yeah. We would have won 0 games, but we would have had great fun doing it.
And then I suppose flipping it a little bit to another sort of really special Lions memory is that test in Wellington, coming back in, snatching it at the death. the rain, the wind, everything that was going on. And then I just remember, we mentioned, didn't we, about the squad being all together as one, how special that atmosphere was. I suppose for me as a non-playing member of that group, what do you remember from that sort of that test and the atmosphere in particular in the dressing room afterwards?
Yeah, it's a standout memory in my career, that test in Wellington. The way we won it, like we lost the first test, and again, you'll know from playing the All Blacks, you can play well against them and they still scored like 40 odd points, and going into that game you're kind of like, oh, this is like, it's the All Blacks here. And then the game, I remember the game just being really tight, and the longer you're in it and the scoreboard is close, you're like, we really have a chance here. And Toby's finish in the corner, that ridiculous finish, and then you start believing. And I remember the rain. I remember the Lions fans, like the sea of red, and singing just that Lions chant, just like over and over, and all the they're singing Delilah or something like that. I remember just like standing on the pitch during the game in a break and play. I'm like, this is you're living your dream here, in terms of like you're in a proper Lions test match here. It's on the knife edge, and yeah, to win it was incredible. The way we won it at the end, the way we won it at the end, like we obviously got ahead, and did we get to level and Faz kick the penalty?
Yeah,
was that right?
That was it.
Yeah, that penalty was. I orchestrated it, and this isn't a brag, or this isn't me like bigging myself up. I remember I hurt my neck that Six Nations, so I got on tour, and my left arm was just weaker than my right. Like I remember Howells used to do these warm up scrum half drills, and he'd have you throwing 15-meter passes, and I was like, in the warm up, I would be like looping these passes off my left. Genuinely, like I was struggling with it early and obviously into the test game. So we were just playing off 9, and I threw a shit pass to Sinks. So he had, like, off my left, he had to jump. This is genuine. You can watch it back. He had to jump to catch it. Like, it was just a normal carry, but he had to jump. So he left the ground, and I don't know what All Black tackled him, but tackled him in the air because he had to jump to catch my shit pass, and then Faz kicked the points. Other than that, like, thank God for my neck injury and my bad pass.
I was going to say, there's a few people thanking you for that neck injury. Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so thanks George for running over me in the Millennium that time. Yeah, and then just walking around the pitch afterwards, and the buzz we had, and getting into the changing room, and the whole squad, because it's rare, isn't it? Like you have a chance to beat New Zealand in the Test series down there, and we had that after that Wellington game, and proper special one. And then the kind of dead rubber then the week after because the first test, whatever, then the second test was such a big moment, like felt like a proper Lions moment. And then you go to Eden Park, and it just kind of, the fans just walk out and go, well,
fades away a little bit.
Yeah. But it was Wellington was right up there.
Speaking a little bit more about maybe present day Lions, after delving into the memory bank, what your long star? I mean, there's someone you know incredibly well on the coaching staff in terms of Johnny Sexton. I suppose the listeners and the viewers will have seen what Johnny is like on the field, playing against teams that they support and their nations, etc. What's he been like to play and train with? And I suppose what will he add into that British and Irish Lions coaching environment?
Yeah, he's still the same in terms of the standards he expects, and I think he's actually, because when he's a player, he's a bit like you, Biggs. He can see red, and he can really go at his teammates. You know what I mean? But which is a good thing as a 10. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. He stepped into training in November, I think. We needed numbers, so he stepped in at 10 on the opposition, and I swear to God, he was coming up with moves and ripping the starters apart. It was like on a Thursday, and I remember Bundy, because they went through the centre a few times, a few line breaks, and Bundy was like, he's absolutely ruined my confidence now for the weekend. So he still has it to some degree. But then as a coach, he's been really good. He's obviously finding his feet as a coach, and we have Andrew Goodman as our backs coach and attack coach, and Johnny's just kind of dovetailing with him a little bit. And he'll be brilliant. He's Johnny, he's the rugby IQ he has is different level, and the way he sees the game, and he can he can articulate that to lads and play on past experiences. And I think he'll be really valuable. He's down as an assistant coach, so he'll just, he'll obviously help the kickers and stuff, but he'll, you see him in Ireland camp, just not only tens, but chatting to back threes about covering the backfield. If he's trying to find space as a 10, like helping those lads defend and things like that. So, no, he'll be really good. He'll be really good down there.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Sports on Now.
The British and Irish Lions are down under for the tour, and I'm pretty excited to see how it's going to unfold, Jim.
Oh yeah, me too. I'll be glued to Sky Sports, as it's the only place to watch every thrilling moment. Andrew, who are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh, it's got to be Finn Russell, my favourite fly half, my favourite player, now champion of England as well. Finn Russell's the man. What about you, Jim?
I'm interested to see if Henry Pollock, at the age of 20, could make the Test match side. That's it.
There we go. And what are your predictions?
Predictions 2-1. I reckon Lions first, Australia second in Melbourne in front of 100,000 people, and it's a straight shootout in the third.
However the Lions get on, it's going to be very hard to take your eyes off the action. So make sure you catch all 3 tests and all 6 warm-up games live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August on Sky Sports.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, you can add and remove membership whenever you like.
Nice! Watch every match on Sky Sports, available to stream live with Now. 18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
Do you think the guys like maybe Finn Russell is obviously a little bit more experienced and used to sort of pulling the shots and things at international? Do you think he would be a huge help to a Finn Smith and a Marcus Smith in terms of helping them with maybe a bit of game management, a bit of finding their rhythm a little bit and not putting all the pressure on 2 slightly younger 10s in that sense?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think you could try that out early doors on the tour and put Jameson with those younger 10s and like I said there about the short side, it's only a small part of the game, but like that's like as a 10 when you're probably standing on the open side and you're like, there's not much on here, I'm not really sure how to go, and then next minute Jameson goes down the blind, makes a break or clears pressure or finds Lowy with his left foot. And I know I'm talking about Irish players here, but that's just the experience I have. As a 10, then suddenly you haven't done anything and you're either way up the pitch or you've made a line and now you're attacking. Now the picture's clear. So that's what Jamison does. He does take pressure off.
I think that's something, Conor, that you were excellent at, and some of the best 9s in the world are great at. I suppose because there is so much pressure on a 10's shoulders, isn't there, in terms of the amount they get the ball, the decisions, big passes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think if you've got someone who can just take a couple of short sides, sometimes as a 10, it's quite nice not to touch the ball for 3, 4, 5 phases. You know what I mean? And let it's almost like the 9 dictate. If you've got a strong-minded 9 and someone who understands the game, which you clearly did, and clearly Jameson Gibson Park does, it's a huge asset to a team, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, like you said, if you don't touch the ball for 4 or 5 phases, and your team is going well. I think with Ireland and in rugby in general, I think especially with us from my experience over the last few years, it's just a backline kind of responsibility. Like gone are the days of just a 9 and 10, orchestrating everything. Like there's huge pressure we put on like our back 3 or our centers, like to find kick space, for example. You know what I mean? And they find it or take a short side and release pressure that way. They're all kind of normal things to do, but like the kind of emphasis we've put on it over the last few years has been really good. And then I suppose having a left legger, and I'm going back to Lowy, who I think he's very close to starting in the Test. I think having someone like him, to just relieve pressure on that side of the ruck or to run or kick or whatever it is, or to like know where the space is. It's part of the game now. Like you don't wait for 10s to call everything. That was Johnny, I suppose, that a huge strength of his. Like he just dictated everything. He was telling wingers that there's space somewhere else, and they have to find it. Whereas now it's the pressure's on everyone to kind of run the back line and take it off. And so I think that'll be interesting with the 2. I think Finn Smith's unbelievable. I think what he's done lately is class. I think he's got flair, but he just strikes me as like a test 10. I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just has that, whatever it is, hard to describe, but it'll be interesting to see them go, how they go early doors. Like you said, Finn Russell has that experience and probably knows how to manage that game. I'm not saying the young lads don't. Marcus has loads of experience too, but it'll just be interesting to see how they link up with the nines. Yeah.
If you could sort of, you've been through obviously some extreme highs in that green shirt and some real lows. What era or what spell did you feel was most special, I suppose, to you, Conor?
Yeah, I said it. I said it in the dressing room in Rome for my last game in the Six Nations just gone, and it's this era, like last 3 or 4 years, say, with Faz, and funnily enough, it was the 3 or 4 years where I was on the bench. Basically, I was second string. It didn't feel like that though. It felt, I started in 2011, and I don't know, Jamison came in 21, 22. He started getting his nose through at that stage. I got on that line sort of 21, and then after that, he just started kicking on. So I had a 10-year period of where I was playing number 9, and I was number 1, which was fantastic. But genuinely, my favorite time in an Irish squad was the last 4 years. We've obviously had success, and you played your part. You didn't start that many games with it, but I did play my part. And like I just spoke about with Faz in terms of making it a really close environment, and there's no kind of bullshit with Faz. It was genuine kind of relationships. You know what I mean? He didn't, some coaches try and like build relationships with like team building activities or whatever it is, and it just doesn't feel genuine. This was like a family. It really was. In fact, like you always look at the man at the top, and they create, I suppose, the environment, and it was just so close. There was like, we had a World Cup where we were in a good spot, and we were tipped to go far, and that didn't work out. But the memories and the experiences of doing it with this group over the last 3, 4, 5 years was my favorite time. I said it in Rome, and you see when lads retire and they go, "This group is the best team I've been part of." Blah blah. I genuinely meant it. I think I know there's lads in that group that I'll be friends with for life. And I've proper relationships with. So yeah, that time was definitely my favorite.
Yeah. And you touched on it then, Conor. We've spoken about all the success and the high moments and things. How difficult was that 2023 World Cup loss experience, and how did you guys process, you individually and you guys process that quarterfinal exit? Because I think you mentioned it just then, it kind of felt like you were tipped to go, and it really felt like this was the moment where Ireland were going to break that curse and really push on, sort of.
Yeah. It was really tough. It's you said, how do you process the loss and stuff? I think there's a few, not many in my head, but that will live with us forever. Genuinely, that was just a really tough one to get over. And we all, like, when you lose a big game, you have, I have 3 or 4 moments in my head from that game that I wish I did something differently. Gave away a penalty for like blocking a chaser. Jordy Barr kicked it, and we did get up, and I think we scored a try, and it kind of in my head I'm like, okay, it's not my fault we lost, or we're losing or whatever. And there's everyone has them. Yeah, the way that World Cup was, and I think a lot of nations will say the same, but our fans were just like, we played in the Stade de France against South Africa, Scotland, and then New Zealand, and like the memories and the noise and the zombie songs that the fans were singing, and we were just on this journey together, and it was because the squad was so tight, and we're like, right, we're going to a World Cup, the world stage here. We can absolutely do this. We've proven it. I think did we just win the Grand Slam? We did. Yeah. We just won the Grand Slam. Yeah. And we were number 1 and etc. It doesn't mean anything, but like you can reference it a little bit for belief or whatever. And then that is, we got through the group great. We beat South Africa in the Stade de France, won a second game or third game. And then we got to the New Zealand game, and it is a thing now with Ireland in quarterfinals. Like we tried to play it down, but like I think I've been to 4 World Cups and I've lost 4 quarterfinals, and that's one regret I'd had, just to play in a semi-final, or to be there for the last week, or to stay the whole course in the World Cup. And we had the firepower to do it, but we just we gave the All Blacks such a quick lead. I don't remember the scoreline, but they fired ahead, and we fought back. We got in the lead or very close to it. I'm not sure, but I remember like we conceded a try off like a 4-man line out first phase, and you're just like, like at that stage of like that big a test match, like you got to make teams work for their scores, and it was just like easy, not easy, but like just stuff that we wouldn't usually do, and you can say that's pressure or whatever. So yeah, it's still in my head. It's definitely still in my head, that game, because it was definitely our greatest chance. Definitely our greatest chance, I felt, and a lot of other people felt that too. So, yeah, hopefully the lads go on and get past that hurdle at some point while we're still alive.
Yeah. If just to sort of to pick you back up in the green shirt after dragging you down a bit there, Colin. Sorry.
Yeah.
What if you had a favourite one particular moment in a green jersey, what would it be?
Well, yeah, I would say, Six Nations are brilliant. I think that whole competition, the history around it, the vibe of all, like the Dublin, Paris, Cardiff, the cities you go to, and the Six Nations on, it's something special, and to win it is great. But I think Chicago in 2016, when we played the All Blacks in Soldier Field, we hadn't beaten them in 110 years or something like that, and the Chicago Cubs hadn't won the World Series in 112 years, something very close to us, and they won the World Series the week we were in Chicago. Just the week we had, and then the game was like, selfishly, I played probably one of my best games for Ireland at the time, so that's my favourite memory. But no, I remember walking out to the field with Zeebs. It was November in Chicago, but it was a clear sunny day, like not a cloud in the sky, and it was warm. And me and Zeebs were like, "This is class! Like this is gonna be like, where would you want to be?" Like, I really like being around Zeebs for that reason, because like I wouldn't be as relaxed as him, be relaxed enough, but like he would just put you at ease. Like you're going up against like Surveyors and all these guys and the All Blacks, and you're like, this could get ugly. Like, sometimes you're hoping it's a bit wet, and it's a kicking contest, and it was like the perfect day to play rugby, and we ended up playing rugby the whole way through. We scored 42 or 3 points, and we beat the All Blacks in Chicago, and it was one of the, because there's always a little bit of belief, isn't there, that you can do it, but there's always like Ireland hadn't done it in 100 and
until you've done it. Until you've done it, and then the feeling after, and you have done it, is just like, those feelings that you can't buy them. So that's probably my standout one. Yeah, that was I'd say it was like a statement, wasn't it, from you guys that day, and it sort of really announced you guys as real competitors there. In terms of, we spoke Lions, we spoke Ireland. Obviously, Munster, you said that it's potentially, looking at something different in the next few months. You've been sort of Munster through and through, a club legend, along with the likes of sort of Pete and Rog and Paulie, etc. But is there sort of a favourite moment in a Munster shirt, or anything which maybe people wouldn't automatically think of you as a Munster man that you maybe could share with us?
Yeah, we've been, I suppose, starved of trophies with Munster. I won one in 2011 when I came in, and we won the URC 2 years ago. That was great. The URC, when we it wasn't even joy; it was just relief that me, Pete, Earlsy, just had something to show for the last decade or more of playing. But that was brilliant. I think one that people wouldn't really associate, and it's kind of sad, but it's also it's emotional in terms of when Axel, our coach Anthony Foley, passed away in Paris before we played Racing that time. Unbelievably sad and tragic, and it was the next week we played Glasgow in Europe at home, and there was talk of like, should we play, shouldn't we play? And the decision was made to play it. And I'm really glad that we did, because we were all like so emotional and upset that day. But I think the Munster fans are incredible. Off topic, like the way they travelled to La Rochelle there recently was just mind blowing again. Just they really make the effort and they make the noise. That day in Thomond was, we beat Glasgow, we weren't going to lose that game. I remember Earlsey got sent off at the start, and it was just, we were all on the edge, and we put them away. And then just the moment after that game, we were all in the huddle with Axel's two boys, and we sang "Stand Up and Fight" or whatever, our club song, and then the whole stadium stayed there. Not one person left Thomond Park, and they had like Axel 8 as like banners in the stand. And I remember just feeling this is some club. This is really, really special. A very sad moment, obviously, but I remember being like, I wouldn't say favorite, not because of happiness, just because it meant so much at that time. So I think that was like where you feel your club, how closely knit we are as a community, I suppose.
Feels like a little bit of an institution from the outside in terms of like, you know, how everyone had a family, right? Like sometimes I think this, like a lot of coaches and a lot of clubs say, oh, we're a family club, but it's sometimes it is just said, isn't it? You've probably been around enough people, Conor, to know that sometimes that can just get thrown around, but it does really feel like Munster does feel like that in a sense. And did that make it even more special, maybe winning that URC, to give back to the loyal supporters, the family, etc., etc.? Because I remember I said once, I think I'd have given up a Six Nations title for maybe another trophy at club level, at certainly probably a premiership with Saints or whatever. So it was kind of like, is that something that you feel and resonate as well?
100%. Yeah, I think I remember the feeling afterwards for me, Pete, Earlsey, Stephen Archer, the relief and because that's where you spend all your time. Like, I know you go to camp and you whatever, and you go on tours, which is great, but like you spend the majority of your time with your club, and winning that with like young fellas that are just coming through, or lads that have been around a while, or lads that aren't lucky enough to go to international camp, lads who are at their club all year round, for years and years. There's lads that I can think of in my head like that have, they keep the ship going when the internationals are away, and then for them to get a reward at the end of that was really special. And to do it, we did it kind of, I wouldn't say flukily is the wrong word, but like we just went on a mad run at the end of the season. We did like 6 or 8 away games, and we won them all, and that included the quarterfinal, semi-final, final. So we did it the unorthodox route, which is what we Munster do weirdly. Like if you gave us a straightforward route to the final, like home, I don't know, what do we do? Would we prefer it to be? No, it's not that we prefer it, but somehow we just fight that way. When maybe we're not playing that well, or we find a way somehow. That's just something that I have found is part of Munster as well. Is like it might not be a good thing, but do we need our backs to be against the wall, or do we need to be underdogs, or whatever it is? It's just like through the years of Paulie, Raj, and all those lads, it's and they had the most success. So to win one, to lift a trophy in 23 was brilliant. Like, we'd won the Grand Slam, we ended up winning the URC, and I flew straight to Portugal for my wedding. So it was, all the lads were in great form, like, unbelievable form. Like, just obviously we had a good few Munster lads there. We had a few Leinster lads at that wedding too, and we had beaten them in the semi-final. So it was the speeches were good. My best man rinsed a few of the Leinster lads, which was good.
Anyone in particular who got it?
Johnny was wearing like Johnny was wearing. In a summer wedding, like it was abroad, so like the lads were wearing their own kind of suits. So he was wearing like a flowery shirt, and then my best man called him, Alfie Moon. Is that your man from EastEnders or whatever? Yeah. Like, he was wearing Alfie Moon's shirt and stuff. So he rinsed Johnny. He rinsed Jack Conan. Because I remember we were chatting a while ago about like being on the bench and that being their favourite time. So like, I had been on the bench that year. Jack Owen had been on the bench. So my mate had gotten one of the subs bibs. my best man, and he like held it up and like he was like, Jack Owen, you forgot your bib today. And so, there was a good few of us there. Play. So it was good. It was a great time to get married because all the lads were in great form.
Speaking of how much of a legacy you're going to leave at Munster, if there was one bit of advice, because I get asked this a lot about, what advice would you give to a 10 when they're starting out, etc. If there was a young 9 at Munster wanting to emulate and achieve probably half as much as what you've achieved in your career, what one bit of advice would potentially you pass down to somebody in the club or a young 9 in general?
I got this advice when I was in the academy in Munster. And I grew up playing football and Gaelic football and soccer, obviously, and so I knew how to kick a ball, so I love kicking, and that was kind of in me. And then passing wise, I had a decent pass, but probably inconsistent. I remember an academy coach, Ray Egan was his name. I think he went to the States, coaching the States a bit, but I remember him pulling me aside one day and being like, "See that pass of yours? Like, it's good, but like you need to make sure it's consistent because that's your bread and butter. That's going to earn you your contracts. Those basics." And it stuck with me because I always trained it. I always when I was younger, especially, I just passing drills, kicking drills all the time. They're your two basics. And I've seen living proof of it because I've seen 9s come in. Or at different clubs and countries and stuff, and I've seen them, and they're unbelievable athletes, like way better than I would ever be, way quicker and stronger and whatever. And I remember I've seen a few of them, like they can't pass, they can't kick, like to a level where it would get them to the next level. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I'd say to a young 9 is basics. Get your basics like spot on to like a really consistent level, and then the rest of your game can grow.
Couple of quick fire questions before we go, mate. So first up, who's your favourite ever international scrum half?
I'll have Mike Phillips. I have to say because we're on this pod, but he was the tall unorthodox 9, and he was the fella who kind of set the trend and paved the way. So Mikey.
Best ever Lions tourist?
Rory Best. I can. Oh, just we spoke about it earlier with Biggs in terms of Bestie was outside the test squad in 2017, but he was the glue of that whole. Him and Hask and a few more were the glue of that whole tour in terms of keeping everyone together in good spirits. Just keeping the place ticking over, and probably in a difficult spot himself in terms of wanting to play in the test, but just knew the importance of the group.
He parked that unbelievably well, Conor, didn't he, Bestie? And I think though, do you know the two characters you said there? I think everybody sort of thought Bestie was that kind of character and an amazing bloke. Whereas I think we were all a bit surprised about Hask, weren't we? Because we were all a bit like, we didn't really know. Do you remember he got called up late and everyone was watching the TV in the hotel, and it was like Haskell's coming up, and we're like, oh God!
Yeah,
and then he ends up just being, like you said, one of the best tourists you
them as a duo. Bestie and Hask as a duo were unbelievable. Yeah, Hask was a brilliant tourist. Like, and even like one thing that surprised me talking to Hask like one-on-one, a gent. Like, not that you wouldn't assume it. He's just so loud, and you'd be like, this fella doesn't take any seriously. Then chatting to him one-on-one, he's a great fella. So they worked really well together.
Nice. Toughest opponent you've ever faced? Someone who you don't want scragging you at a ruck?
He's a teammate and he's an opponent, Jack Conan, a good friend, but like I remember playing against him as we were coming through the ranks and trying to tackle him. He was an 8, so having to tackle him off the base of a scrum was torture. Like, it's like, who said it before? It's like tackling a coffee table that's running at you. Just all edges and everything is hard, and like, and you have to, some lads are manageable to tackle. He's just a nightmare. He's
like a bag of spanners. He's like Cathy. That's what we used to say. That's what we used to say about Cathy. Generally, he'd end up injuring so many boys in training because he's just all elbows and knees and hips. And
we had a bag of spanners. Dev Toner was that. You can imagine. Like the forwards used to hate like lineouts and stuff. He'd be standing on lads, kicking lads and stuff, and just awkward, an awkward moving body that's sore. So, Jack Conan, like just hard edges, really good player, but hard, really sore.
Well, Conor, I can absolutely say that from a player's point of view, not just myself, but everyone who's probably played with and against you will hold you in the very highest esteem, mate. You've been an absolutely brilliant player, but on top of that, you've been probably an even better bloke, mate. So I really appreciate your time this afternoon, and good luck with whatever comes next.
Cheers, boys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Biggs. Cheers, Rob.
Pod.
Rugby pod.